Hello guys, welcome back to our channel Sarath Financial Info. So today we will talk about the stock that is always a big deal for the budget. So that stock is ITC, none other than. And that's because whenever the government wants to tweak taxes on the cigarette, they use budget speech to announce it everyone in the India. And these tax tweak matters to the ITC because of the company sells a lot of cigarettes. So on Wednesday, when Ms. Nirmal Sitharaman slipped in a line saying that the tax would be hiked by 16%, investors were probably gutted. They felt that the good run had come to end and the stock dropped by 5% within a matter of seconds. So ITC sector was down after this news, like 16% hike on the cigarettes, but it took just 30 minutes for the things to change. See, the cigarette face kind of taxes, there is a GST at 28%, but that's not what the finance minister tinkered with. That's up to the GST council to tweak, and that's all highest level anyways. So then there is a compensation SAS which is around 5% plus a certain fixed amount that is tax that was levied to compensate states. So when GST was introduced, state had to forego some of their control over the imposing certain kind of taxes, and this special tax on certain sin goods like cigarettes would be compensate state for the losses. So finally there is something called the National Calamity Contingency Duty, NCCD, which is kind of like excise duty. Don't ask why it's called the NCCD or other question. But this is typically a fixed charge based on the size of the cigarette. For instance, if a cigarette size is 6.5 centimeter, then the duty is around 0.44 rupees per stick, and that's what government decided to hike, nothing else. It wasn't an exorbitant hike either. So just 16% sure on the face of it. 16% sounds like a lot to digest, but do the math and you'll find that it's only take the NCCD to rise to 0.51 rupees per stick from 0.44. Is that a body blow to ITC? Absolutely not. Some estimates back that they will only have to increase the price of cigarette by the 1 to 2% and they will be able to pass it along to the smokers. The smokers are the sticky customer. They like their specific brands and they have their preferences, so they will sell out a premium, and the meager price increase won't hurt them. The demand is relatively elastic, and also remember ITC is a virtual monopoly in this organized cigarette business. 8 out of 10 cigarettes sold legally in IT is an ITC brand in India, and beating the giant is hard. It's got phenomenal distribution network it has built over the past 100 years. And in fact, ITC claimed that it sells cigarettes through our 7.1 million outlets, double the number of outlets of its nearest competitor. So when the ITC investors digest all of this, they probably realized they have overreacted, and this increase won't going to drive smokers away from the ITC and into the arm of cheaper and illicit source of tobacco. So within 30 minutes the stock had recovered, and then some investors were so happy that they kept buying it on the Thursday too, and then ITC shares hit all-time high. Now it's anybody guess if the trend will persist because of there. One thing for certain is it is that you never know which side stock price movement will swing, but we can still ask guess, is the 16% NCCD hike such a big deal for stock? No. Well, we can't be sure about that, but things are driving the stock. It's a stock market after all. It has a mind of its own, but we can post a few theories. For starters, it's not just that the hike is duty was minimal, it's about the expectations of the hike. If most investors expected a bigger hike and were pleasantly surprised that it wasn't to be, they will tempted to load up on the stock. Also, now that the hike is out of the way, there won't be any stocks for the foreseeable future, so the uncertainty has been knocked out for at least for 1 year, and the investors like to have some degree of certainty about how things will play out in the future. You see, the ITC has been selling a lot of cigarettes in the past couple of years, and much more than what investors anticipated. In the fact, Despite of the whole anti-tobacco campaign and warning all about the ill effects of the tobacco, people are buying cigarettes, and the stable tax regime has helped it, and that has allowed it to bite into the share of the illicit market. Because, and don't hate us for the throwing that in here, so low per capita consumption leaves room for the cigarette to grow in India, while on average people across the world smokes 800 cigarettes a year, and India consumes the legal variety of is just 89 cigarettes. So most folks in India still prefer the tobacco products such as BDs, gutkhas, but if the tax regime remains more or less stable and as per capita incomes rise, we might see the gradual shift to the cigarettes, and it's a long shot, but it's possible. And on the forget that ITC is staying ahead of the curve too. They have already launched a 5 pack of the cigarettes. They know that 75% of all cigarettes in India are sold as a single stick. So people prefer buying single because of it's just easier and cheaper to do it for the quick fix. So the by shrink of the packet, ITC is trying to widen its prospective customers base. If the rumors are true and the Indian governments ban the sale of single sticks across the country, ITC will be fully prepared for the selling 5 cigarettes pack, and it won't be set the market of that illicit cigarette business that easily can take over the ITCs. But this depends on the cigarette, can't be only things driving the stocks. So after all, like cigarette sell only contribute less than 40% of the revenue of the ITC. So ITC has got its brand in many pies. It sells biscuits, atta, noodles, and it has chain of the hotel and other agri business and supplies exports wheat. It even sells paper and packaging products. So if you'll see the revenue mix, cigarettes are 36%, FMCG 29%, agriculture business 22%, and paperboard and paper packaging 11%, and hotel is just, and all business are on the rise. For example, take FMCG for instance, they have personal care products, biscuits, even the instant noodles. ITC has built all this from the ground up. They have built their products, they have built a robust supply chain, and they had to pump in cash for the marketing and stuff to ensure that people remember all its brands. That means they haven't even seen massive profitability from the segment over the past decade. ITC's net margin on these products have been the quite poor, typically at just 2 to 3%. While its peers commands over 15%, but that's slowly changing. Its net margin have been inched up towards the nearly 2%, and investors are now expected this to keep improving. So margin improvement can show some positivity in the stock market in the future. And while the hotel business is typically capital incentives and doesn't yield a lot of the profit, ITC has tweaked its strategy. It doesn't want to splash the cash and embark on a massive hotel acquisitions spree anymore. It wants to be more asset light. So it has been building up its portfolio of the hotels by entering into the contract to simply manage the existing properties and owned by others, such as managing hotels under businessman Ravi Pillai's RP Group hotels and resorts under the ITC brand. This way, ITC keeps its foot in the hospitality door but sell out less cash in the process. And with the tourism and conferencing picking up after the pandemic, and wind is blowing in favor of the ITC hotel. Even its agri-business and helps it create frozen peas, shrimps and paper that as a classmate brand of books has picked up pace in a big way. But will the good time for ITC last? Well, investors have a love-hate relationship with ITC. They know that it's a sin stocks that's at the whim and fancies of the government. They know that all the cigarettes business is only 40% of the revenue, but the profit 80% of the ITC profit comes from cigarette business only, and that's help them to grow their other verticals and big spendings on the marketing of their FMCG products and hotels. So thank you for watching it. Please like, share and subscribe, and be in the touch to listen more these kind of stories.